But it's a precision and rigor that only becomes apparent in retrospect. In fact, I would say 99% of things involving the imaginary intern only become apparent in retrospect. And he really did fervently believe, as do I, in this whole idea of staying secret, of shunning the spotlight. A friend of mine once suggested that someone make a documentary about the imaginary intern. Set up cameras all over the house like in that movie Paranormal Activity. And I told the imaginary intern about it, and he freaked. He hated the idea. And I immediately regretted having told him about it. It was a huge mistake. And sometimes I think that that's actually why he left. He just wanted to be completely off the radar, left alone, completely inconspicuous, completely off camera. I don't know if he'd been abused in his life or what, but he just wanted to be able to relax and act as loony and as dorky as he wanted to without having to worry about what anyone else thought. And I think the idea of a documentary just really shook him up. It really spooked him. I think I mentioned before that I've tried to reconjure his face from the configuration of cracks in the tile floor of other bathrooms. In fact, I was sitting on the toilet in the men's room in the Nordstrom in this mall, actually, and I thought I discerned his face in some crackler on the floor. And I remember I was concentrating so hard on it, trying so hard to force a jumble of disparate features into a recognizable physiognomy that I was actually straining, pressing in that way that can cause hemorrhoids. So I had to stop. I've had that sudden frisson, that jolt of, it's him, many times. And I'll squint and I'll look from different angles and inevitably, it's a false alarm. It's not him. And it's a big letdown. It really is. It's a shitty feeling. But that's what nonfiction is, people. Shitty feelings and encounters with death. And that's why we're here tonight. The imaginary intern once defined autobiography as, quote, a compulsion to share one's life with strangers on social media, end of quote. Along with this compulsion comes a burden of truth. Holderlin wrote in his poem Patmos, quote, the Lords are kind, but while they reign, what they most abhor is falsehood. And so, in honor of all the martyrs who've died keeping it real, I'd just really like to set the record straight about my mom's driving. Not only does she not drink and drive, she barely drinks at all. And she's a terrific driver. Just a really, really great driver. And what I mean about honoring all the martyrs who've died keeping it real is that people make enormous sacrifices writing nonfiction instead of fiction. I mean, I could have easily concocted something a lot more interesting than an ovarian cystic teratoma for my mom, if that's what I wanted to do. I could have given her a tumor that I don't know, a tumor that could sing and dance and act and do impersonations, like Sammy Davis Jr. or something. And everyone would have said, oh, that's so cool. How'd you ever think of that? Where do you get your ideas? And as for me, prostate cancer? I mean, come on. Prostate cancer has got to be the most boring cancer there is. Seriously. So many men have prostate cancer. If I'd really wanted to give myself some fascinating, bizarre disease, I certainly could have just used my imagination and come up with something, like some weird, I don't know, some grotesque prolapse or exotic anal fissure that has to be treated with habanero-infused flushable wipes. And everyone would have been like, oh my God, magical realism, that's so cool. And some people would have been like, what are you on? And I could have shot back with Lance Armstrong's, what am I on? I'm on my bike, busting my ass 6 hours a day. What are you on? In other words, I don't have an exotic anal fissure, and my mom didn't have an ovarian tumor that could sing and dance and play the drums and that had one eye. And that's not what we're all here for tonight. At the Nonfiction at the Food Court reading series, tonight's about reality. Tonight we say death to fiction. And by fiction we mean anything or anyone that occludes the forces that really matter. And we also say, and this is something the imaginary intern and I used to say to each other before bed, death to anyone who opposes the negation of everything that causes us to be dead while alive. And I just want to say again that I'm extremely proud to have been invited. And, you know, something occurred to me in the car on the way over here tonight, and it's that we're all, each and every one of us, ticking time bombs, potential first-person shooters, mall shooters, whatever, who, given the opportunity to cast off the constraints of petite bourgeois morality, would choose random sadomasochistic chemsex with hooded strangers over real relationships any day of the week. We live in this crazy, inside-out, totally bizarro world today where, just to give you another example, several large-scale phase 3 clinical trials have apparently confirmed the efficacy of fecal transplants in the treatment of social anxiety disorder. I have a friend who's a psychiatrist, and I called him recently because I'd been wondering about whether my fondness for chubby women with small breasts was somehow homoerotic. Not that it's something I'm overly concerned about or anything. I was just curious to see what his professional opinion was. And at some point in the conversation, he mentioned tangentially the funny thing about the fecal transplants. Look, yes, life is super trippy. Yes, it may contain intense violence, blood, gore, sexual content, and or strong language that may not be suitable for children, on-screen defecation, long strings of snot, and sad, sad times. But again, I just want to say this. Nothing else in my life compares to the vitality and plenitude of this moment right now, right here. For me, these plastic chairs and tables are as real as an audience as the miners and cowboys Oscar Wilde regaled in Leadville, Colorado in 1882, or the insensible drunks at the saloon who jeered Granville Thorndike, the traveling thespian in John Ford's My Darling Clementine. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Oh, Thorndike, you preposterous, undaunted poser, ever posing as the sad, sad, furbered prince. Oh, sad, sad, furbered prince. Sad, sad, furbered, Oedipally conflicted, impotent prince and poser. Ever posing autobiographically as yourself. As any mother-besotted son knows, especially the mother-besotted son who is unassimilable in the milieu of his contemporaries. The presence of the mother is simply the cruel betokening of her absence. The mother is the irreducible lack, the hole at the center of it all. And even when we are flying from that, we are flying toward it.